I'm in prison, and that may seem odd, a philosopher in prison, but I have to say this about my profession. The best philosophers often end up in prison. If you're a good baseball player, you end up in the major leagues. If you're a really successful politician, you end up in Washington, I'm sorry to say. If you're really a good philosopher, if you're coming out with new ideas about the 7 great destiny questions that are going to rattle the walls of the social institution, most of the men that I model myself after have been lucky if they got away with just being in prison. Well, the philosopher is looking not just at the narrow research aspects, but for the implications, the great questions of where did we come from, where are we going, we're on this planet, this spaceship Earth, how are we going to go along with each other, how can we use our heads? So that I've always been interested in finding ways of using our nervous system as an instrument to answer the basic questions of life. I think any scientist who really gets to the frontier of his science gets to these basic questions. It gets kind of mystical, gets philosophic, it's inevitable, and I've accepted that responsibility. I think we need, at this time, a new philosophy. We've run out of the great navigational ideas of how we're going to get the great ship moving in the right direction. Well, my main message is use your head, specifically. Learn how to use your nervous system. It's just, for the last 15 years, I've been studying my own nervous system. I've gotten to use my own nervous system the way Leeuwenhoek and the first men that got the microscope, or Galileo, the first guy that got the telescope. It takes years to learn how to focus it and dial it and tune it. I know that the nervous system is a computer. We can program it in many different directions. It's like a series of motion picture or television cameras. We can focus it and turn it around on different objects. It's electronic, it's electric, and we can dial it and tune it. It's there to be used. And the challenge of the human race right now, I call it the neurological age we're going into. We've got to learn how to use our head. I'm in a kind of a time war. I definitely am ahead of it now. There's a question whether I may be off in the right direction, and perhaps the great center movement of society, science won't follow me. These are the risks that the far-out scientist takes. But I have a certain empirical experimental proof that I'm not entirely wrong, because most everything that I said in 1962, 63, my testimony before Senate committees about how we could avoid a drug in this country, in those days I was almost alone as a voice saying this is going to happen, and beware, don't let it happen. And I was considered pretty radical. I was saying that marijuana should not be criminalized, that LSD should be turned over to the government to be treated like fissionable material, like atomic. In the subsequent years, most of my prophecies have come true, and many very conservative organs like the American Medical Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Bar Association, even William Buckley, the conservative writer and television star, they're all coming around to positions that I was considered radical in espousing in the 1960s. If you hadn't asked me about drugs today, I wouldn't have brought it up. I talk about the nervous system, I talk about how we can use our knowledge to make this country a better place, I talk about how to reduce crime, that sort of thing. I want to point out, you're the one that's asking a question about drugs. Now, I know I have to answer questions about drugs because I've been labeled, as we say in prison, that's on my jacket. But I have no more to do with drugs than Einstein has to do with the atomic bomb. You read my books. Less than 10% of any book I've ever written, or 10 or 50% of any lecture I've given, is on drugs. And usually the drug question came up in the question and answer periods afterward. Now, when Albert Einstein got to a particular heaven or Folsom prison hell, wherever his destiny led him, and he began talking about the equations of space-time and the relativity theory, I know that there was a reporter or a television man saying, "Yeah, Albert, what about the atomic bomb?" And he'd say, "Yeah, it's true that there were those crazy, mixed-up kids got a hold of that atomic bomb on the basis of my theories and blew up Nagasaki and Hiroshima." So I have to take the responsibility for drugs as being one part of the philosophy that I've been teaching. I never advocated drugs. I defended drugs, different drugs, against unscientific charges. But as soon as you start saying marijuana is not a killer drug, you become an advocate. As I look in this camera and realize that people are going to be watching this program, I think it's safe to say that maybe a third of the audience generally likes me. They think I'm a philosopher in prison for my ideas, and they don't want me in prison. But I think there's another third that really dislikes me intensely and thinks that I've led the young people astray. There's another third probably that couldn't care less. You're busy enough with your own lives that my debate with the United States government is no concern of yours. There's one thing that's true of almost everyone involved in these debates. They don't really know what I've been saying. I think that very few people who are watching this program have read my books. And we know how the media labels people, how they label Eagleton, how they label Muskie. It's the great sensation game. I don't know how many Americans know this, but I have the honor of being the person that started G. Gordon Liddy on his meteoric career. As much as anyone in this country, I put Gordon Liddy in the White House.
He was how happy he was.
Yeah, he was an assistant DA near Millbrook, New York, where I had a scientific center for studying consciousness. And Gordon was a very ambitious. Now, of course, there are millions of people going along on his trip. In those days, he was the first time that I was harassed by the law was on a Saturday night, midnight. I was in my bedroom with my wife, and I was talking to my son, and the door banged open, and in came G. Gordon Liddy with 24 armed and booted sheriffs. They found no marijuana. The warrant was thrown out. They didn't confiscate a little plant we had on peat moss, which was a geranium. But Gordon Liddy then ran for Congress on the basis that he had driven me out of the county, and from there he went to White House as a drug expert. How did Gordon Liddy get to be a drug expert? Because he had fought Timothy Leary. This has been well known. It's been testified to recently. And, that was 1966, and since then I've been in continual. I know exactly how that system works. I see the United States and the human situation like a nervous system. We're all in touch. I think the problem has been that we've gotten out of touch with each other. We've got to use technology to get into close communication, so that everything we're doing here now is legal. It's with the knowledge of the prison authorities. We want to bring them in. We want to raise their salaries. We want to give them compensation adequate to their problem, because they're facing the crucial problem of how to change men's minds and solve crime. So we're not against anyone. My main advice to everyone is we've got to learn how to use our heads. We've got to realize that the nervous system can be used as an instrument to help us understand why we're here, where we're going. I think we've got to change. We'd like to see the United States move into its third century with the same spirit we had 200 years ago, a spirit of novelty, there's something great, imaginative, and free, so that we have the pride that Americans used to feel. Now, as I look around since I've been back, I don't see that Mr. Nixon or the Democrats have a program that's going to lead us into the third century with this vigor that we need. We'll limp or crawl or kind of stagger into the third century, which I think is a tragedy.